Tony Daunt is the executive director of the Michigan Freedom Fund. He's on our AT&T line right now. Thank you for being available.
You bet. Good morning, sir.
An update, if you would, on the status of the protest that's meant to take place today at noon.
Yeah, well, I think that despite this light dusting of snow here on April 15th, I think, based on what we've seen on the Facebook post, I think the last time I looked at the post that the Operation Gridlock, the Michigan Conservative Coalition that they had put together, it was a little over 4,000 people had indicated, RSVP'd as attending. And so, I would say if even half of those people are actually able to make it, that's a pretty darn good showing to let the governor know that they're concerned and upset with her heavy-handed overreaction to things, her order this last Thursday. And, I think it's important to clear up that, unfortunately the governor and others have been saying, trying to make it seem like these folks just want to open everything up and let us go back to normal and, the consequences be damned. And that's not the case. What we at the Freedom Fund and so many of these other people are saying is we need a more nuanced approach to this issue of the lockdowns. People have been very willing to abide by the recommendations and the guidelines. I think that will continue. But let's look at this differently than just essential versus non-essential. Let's look at it as safe versus unsafe, and what can people do that protects them, their customers, the public, and also allows them to make a living. And that's what they're asking for. That's why we were promoting this protest, and we're proud to have done so.
Okay, and what exactly will happen? People will, it's called Operation Gridlock, so they're going to drive into the Capitol and toot their horns and stay socially distanced in their own particular vehicle?
That's the plan, yeah. That's what we've been instructing. The goal is to have people arrive, kind of all converge on the Capitol around noon. And the instructions have been, obviously stay in your car, follow all of the traffic laws that apply. Just because there's nobody on the roads doesn't mean you can, drive 95 miles an hour to get there. It's not a racetrack. And, pack a lunch, things like that. And just, let your voice be heard and then go home. I think, conservatives, most protests in general are peaceful. I would expect the same for this. And hopefully the governor will hear the message.
Well, now, the governor is not at the Capitol, as I understand it, so will the protest cars drive over to Moores River Drive to where the residence is?
That's not something that we've been promoting. That I haven't seen that promoted on the Conservative Coalition's website. Obviously, people have a mind of their own sometimes, but as long as people are abiding by the appropriate laws and traffic guidelines, and circling the Capitol, I think this would be deemed a success. And whether the governor's at the Capitol or not, I'm pretty sure she's going to see the results.
The media certainly will cover it, I'm sure. And also, now, the other question I would have about that is, there's some talk that the streets might be closed down by the mayor. Have you heard that?
I've heard that type of talk. I know that when the protests kind of really started to gin up some media attention, that the mayor had lashed out and said he thought that was illegal. But just out of curiosity and just because I was bored, I went for a drive last night, actually about 8-ish, and drove downtown just to kind of see what things looked like. And no closures. Everything looked normal. It was, very wide open. Nobody was down there. And so I can't imagine that overnight they moved in any barricades. And if they did, it would be a very cynical ploy to create problems. And I don't think the mayor really wants that.
Tony Cuthbert has noticed a number of television trucks in front of the Capitol this morning already, and there are no barricades evident around the Capitol area as of this morning. So be interesting. And these folks aren't alone. We've got members of Congress now who think the stay-at-home order has gone too far and is too restrictive. Bergman, Huizenga, Molinar, Mitchell, Upton, and Wahlberg all sent a letter to the governor yesterday. And in Byron Township, the supervisor says he's not going to enforce the stay home, stay safe order. He says he's not asking people to break the law, but he thinks that the governor's goal is to destroy the economy of Michigan and lay the blame on you-know-who, the president. Here's Tom Hooker.
As long as my rights are not infringing on other people's rights, I have the freedom to do what I feel is safest for myself and for my family.
That's what he says, and there's a federal lawsuit now challenging the stay home, stay safe order as well. And the Anderson Economic Group says we've already hit our peak, they think, here in Michigan, for what it's worth. And I do hear Tony Daunt from the Michigan Freedom Fund that the governor's office is talking with other governors in the Great Lakes region about making a coalition to reopen the Midwest states. So at least there's some attention being paid to that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, there are a couple things at play there. Number one, related to this pact with other governors, let's not forget that the Senate Majority Leader Mike Shirkey and Speaker Lee Chatfield have been talking about working with the governor for a number of weeks now to in some ways open our economy back up. And again, that's not an issue of let's ring a dinner bell and everything goes back to normal. It's what are the protocols we can put in place to do things safely. Certain areas of the state are unfortunately harder hit and won't be able to do as much as other areas. And then this issue of people starting to refuse to abide by these orders. It's what happens when you treat people like subjects and not citizens.
Do you believe the governor wants to repress the people of Michigan in order to influence the presidential election?
I think that's I'm not ready to make that type of claim. I think, unfortunately, what we've got is it's the governor. She's not willing to look at this in a more nuanced approach. She'd rather just use kind of that heavy-handed, blunt approach of shut everything down, everybody listen to me, and we'll go about this as I see fit. But she's proven so far she's not even willing to talk about having a plan, let alone putting a plan together.
We'll continue with Tony Daunt. It's Michael Patrick Shiels. Dick DeVos coming later. Stay right there. It's MPS. Continuing with Tony Daunt from the Michigan Freedom Fund, I'm looking at a headline from the Washington Examiner. Frazzled Michigan Governor Whitmer tries to recover from attack on the DeVos family. What happened?
Well, for whatever reason, on Monday at her press conference, the governor, in relation to this protest that's scheduled for today at noon, decided to take a swipe at the DeVos family, and without entirely saying the name Betsy in particular, Betsy DeVos, and the Freedom Fund and the Michigan Conservative Coalition, as a way to try and distract basically from the real anger from Michigan citizens at the way she's been handling this. And it got people's back up, as it should. And this is, this claim that the DeVos family has funded the Michigan Conservative Coalition and that they were funding this protest was categorically false. And we simply, at the Freedom Fund, we had spent $250 on a Facebook post promoting the rally, and that's it. And that's what the governor and her team based it on. It's just kind of the reckless political shenanigans that they've been participating in, rather than focusing on things that Mr. Donofrio was just on talking about, unemployment insurance and making sure people can get their benefits. And that's part of the reason for the anger. And it wasn't true, and it's backfired on her.
But now the governor issued a statement yesterday praising the DeVos family for the donations of personal protection equipment and the Amway company stepping up to help the Kent County families. Was that you chuckling in the background?
It was. It just goes to show how amateur hour it can be in that administration as of late. This is a company that provides thousands of jobs to Michigan citizens, that has gone above and beyond for the west side of the state and personal protective equipment and hand sanitizer. And rather than appreciate that first, she has to slam somebody in the family, make false claims, and then probably have somebody remind her, say, hey, Amway's doing X, Y, Z for the state. You may want to avoid that. And I think that's what led to that statement. And, the family, the company, the Freedom Fund, all of us, are more than happy to take the slings and arrows. But she should be mindful of the people that impacts negatively and be thankful for what these companies are doing to help the state.
Tony Daunt is with us, and he will be after this short break from the Michigan Freedom Fund. It's Michael Patrick Shiels all across Michigan. There will be people at the Capitol today driving around in their cars, making their voices heard. They don't like the stay safe, stay at home order as it is, too restrictive. And so if you're in the Capitol District today, you will likely find there to be gridlock.